I'm Dr. Lindsay Coble.
Dr. Noelle Crosby, and this is the Sound Sisters, the Hearing Diaries. And today we have our special guest, Whitney Swander. And Whitney is a private practice owner in Colorado. And she has had such a unique path growing multi-location practices and then making the intentional decision to scale back and refocus. Not always an easy thing to do. And so we're going to talk to her about that today. I think a lot of people in our profession are quietly asking themselves those same questions. How do you make those decisions? And what, made you come to that place where you decided that that was the best choice for you? So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about what drew you into audiology in the first place. And you're probably a lot like the rest of us.
Oh, for sure. At 18, I was less focused on what my career was going to be, and I was more focused on like going away to college and starting over and kind of reinventing myself. And so I moved from Minnesota to Colorado where I had some family. But by doing that, I registered late for college and got stuck in a class about human communication disorders.
Oh,
So
that's
I
so
had no
funny.
idea what I wanted to do. I really didn't know, but I went to the school that I went to because it had a really great teaching program and it had a really great nursing program. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, I don't know that I want to be like outnumbered by kindergartners all the time, so I don't know that teaching is for me, and I'm not quite sure about bodily fluids and nursing and that. So I like that didn't seem like a great fit, but I
Mhm.
thought, well, maybe there'll be some tangential career that's related, but not those things. So sure enough, end up in this communication disorders class. Like many people, well, I, was an out-of-state student, so I thought I would impress my parents by getting a double major. So that's what I did. And then like many, thinking they're going to go forward with speech pathology, got a few years into it and I was like, nope, not for me. But
Yep.
audiology checked all the boxes. It was a little bit more left-brained, more concrete, got to help people sooner, quicker responses, results, things like that. And it checked the boxes of like teaching, coaching,
Mhm.
Yep.
helping. Also, kind of with it was sort of medicine, tangentially related to healthcare, but it wasn't. The only bodily fluid we really have to deal with is totally manageable. Earwax is not such a big deal. So it really checked all the boxes, and I have not regretted a day of that career choice.
Oh, I love it.
Did you know from the start that you would be doing business ownership?
Not even remotely. Not even remotely. So I kind of landed in my job. I'm 26, just had my 26th anniversary, 26 years in 2000. So in grad school, I was on my way to an Applebee's to pick up an application to get a job waiting tables during grad school. And I happened to pass a bell tone, and I just
Mhm.
thought, let me just stop in. So I popped in and he gave me a job, kind of half telemarketing and half like helping clean hearing aids.
Mhm.
So I took that job and I worked all through grad school and I got a ton of experience and hands-on stuff and I got to build rapport with people.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed that. And then a year and a half later, when I graduated with my master's degree, he didn't have room for me to hire me full time. But I had just gone to a regional training for all these Beltone offices and met a gentleman who had 4 locations and absolutely had room for me. So I kind of made the jump. But I think back, there was no Indeed. There was really almost no internet. There was no quick and
Right.
easy way to like shop for jobs. So it was really hard to figure out. You had to know somebody to,
Mhm.
tap in to get a job. And so I felt lucky kind of sliding into this role. Ended
Mhm.
up being a kind of coming on as his director of operations for his 4 locations. Spent my first few years really building the practice up with better practices. Most of his employees had been hearing instrument specialists. And so I just got to pour in a little bit more about how to just be better at what we do and help more people hear better. And then I had no intention of ever being a business owner. I would have done that probably forever.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
as you can imagine, I was like 24 years old, working for a 60-year-old hearing instrument specialist who started as a door-to-door hearing aid salesman before audiologists were allowed to dispense hearing aids.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
even
Yep.
always see eye to eye. And so after a few years, he actually sold 2 of his 4 locations to another employee. And then I was kind of running those other 2. And he told me in a few years I'm going to want to retire, and I'll need to find a buyer. And at that point, I was like, oh, I'm not risking, having to work for another gentleman like that. Or, I would rather just buy them myself.
Mhm.
So when he finally retired, after I'd been with him for 8 years, I just bought him out and bought those 2 locations from there. So that's kind of how I fell
That was
into
the
it.
start. Yeah.
That was the
Well
smart.
toned
Yeah.
into your own journey.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things about that path is that I feel like most audiologists, what you hear in school, especially back then, that would have stayed away from that avenue. They probably
Mhm.
wouldn't have gone to the bell tone. They would have thought, oh no,
Mhm.
that's a place, I don't go to because I'm an audiologist. So the fact that you were
Mhm.
willing to do that and take that step and then learn so much, like I think that's a piece that we don't realize is how much we can learn about the business side and about the sales side from somebody like that. So that was
Mhm.
pretty brave of you to do that.
I've straddled the line for my entire career. I've had one foot in with lots of hearing instrument specialists and
Yeah.
one foot in the audiology world. But I will tell you, as a rule, of course, are exceptions to this. Hearing instrument specialists are better at detaching themselves, seeing it as a business,
Yeah.
not being quite so bleeding heart about it, and
Mhm.
actually making the decisions that make the business more successful. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
everything I really learned about scaling, I learned from them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. What would you say? So early on, you started with just 2 locations.
Mhm.
What kept you going in those early days before you started like growth mode?
So when I had 2 locations, my husband would say that I, probably made the most money that I've ever made because it's just me. It was 2 locations. I was
Uh-huh.
well established in those practices.
And so you didn't have anybody else in there with you. It was just
I had
you,
some assistants, technicians, like, support staff, but it was just
right?
me fitting hearing aids and bringing in revenue.
Mhm.
But I also realized I am never going to have quality of life, and I
Yeah.
may never go on vacation again if
Mhm.
I don't, expand a little bit, grow a little bit. And I didn't even necessarily do it super intentionally, but I only scaled because people came to me as they wanted to retire and they just offered me their offices. And
Mhm.
so I kind of just took over a number of them. Some of them I didn't even buy. I just kind of assumed ownership
Mhm.
of them and grew in that way.
Yeah. And were they all Beltone? Were they all under the Beltone label? Yeah.
So almost immediately after I worked for this gentleman, we left the Beltone and
Mhm.
yeah. So we've been more open. We do a lot with Starkey, but we've been more multi offering since then. And then when he retired, I really did change it into more of an audiology private practice, and we started billing for things we'd never billed for before, and
Mhm.
kind of overhauled it so that now it is more of an audiology private practice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know that can be a difficult transition because the
Oh, I
office
can
I
hear.
bought was a dispenser office and he
Mhm.
would sell the hearing aid and everything he did for the rest of the life of the person and the hearing aid and my part when I bought it was free. And so that
Right.
was a really hard transition for people to accept that it wasn't, well, he told me everything was going to be free forever. I don't know if you were up against any of that.
We were able to kind of say, oh, for the life test time of those devices. And we still kind of have a hybrid. So we do still have some bundled people and some unbundled patients. But even most of the offices that I took over were from either dispensers or from audiologists who ran as dispensing practices who didn't charge for a lot of stuff. And
Right.
so every time we adopted an office or assumed an office, we had to kind of teach those patients a new way. So, yep, been there, done that for sure.
I feel like we even go through that being a brand new practice, but in a
Mhm.
kind of retail chain area with lots of those
Sure.
around. People are shocked by paying an office visit charge, but it's just a different model. You have to train the
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Whitney, tell us, you said you were approached, to buy these practices. What did those years of that growth phase look like? Going from 2 to I think 7 was the most you ever had?
8, yeah.
8?
So we
Yeah,
went
yeah.
from 2 to 3 to 4, then to 6, and then to 8.
Okay.
And having 4 was super manageable. Once we took on 5 and 6, that was a little bit more challenging. And then once we got to 7 and 8, and the seventh and eighth ones were not in the greatest shape. Yeah, I won't go into detail about that, but they were just more messy
Mm-hmm.
and farther away. And so then you start adding distance and that kind of complexity, and those they just became more difficult. One of those last 2 locations that I had taken over, I had a 3-year lease originally in that, and then it ended in 2020. So kind of right in May of the time of
Mm-hmm.
COVID,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
did. And so we kind of just shut that office down, but it was close enough. It was sandwiched between 2 others. So we
Mm-hmm.
basically just could have all of those patients go to 2 other locations. So we don't think we lost a lot of patients, but so we let one office go, and so I had 7 for probably 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
What was the distance from like one to the other? I mean, is it like within a 2-hour swath, within like 60 minutes?
Um, from the farthest north to the farthest south was Fort Collins all the way down to Colorado Springs, which is, gosh, probably 160 miles
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
so.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
But
pretty big area.
through the heart of Denver.
Yeah.
And, Denver basically only has one highway going through
Mhm.
north to south. And so there was no real good way to avoid that. And so it wasn't just distance, it was also traffic
Uh-huh.
and just unpredictability of traffic.
Mhm.
So yeah, so 3 hours from farthest north to farthest south.
Mhm.
Yeah. And were you managing to go to all of the different offices on different days or?
So as I grew, I was able to add some staff, but the more I grew, the more problems there became keeping everything staffed. I think I was raised in that like Gen X school of hard knocks. Like I literally got a day or 2 of training when I started my job, and I got 1 day of training when I took over the business. Like my boss gave me 1 day to teach me, these are the vendors we use for different things, and this is how you do payroll. And then I didn't even need the lesson about payroll because I hired a payroll company. So like everything else I just kind of had to learn on my own.
Mhm.
And I think I adopted that people are used to that. And the reality is, especially these days and age, this day and age, that's not the truth. And
Mhm.
so having so many locations and then having to try to provide enough training where everybody felt as comfortable as they needed to feel, that became a hindrance. After a while, not right away. We were quite successful for quite a while, but once those challenges started, and then with some of the workforce issues that came kind of after COVID, it just magnified, and I just couldn't keep up with it. And
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
we would have, one audiologist leave in one location, and then I would go and I would spend a couple months there, and I would cover and hire and train and onboard and get that person up and running. Well, but by doing that, then I'm ignoring or avoiding or like just not able to give the attention to somebody in another office, and then they're getting discontent, and then all of a sudden they find an opportunity where the grass seems greener, and then they
Yeah.
leave, and I'm bouncing to the next one. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't get out of that
Mm.
around. I couldn't get off that. And it became really, really frustrating. And that's when I had to kind of make a decision.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's go into that piece of it. So we made that decision to pivot
Mhm.
and scale back and refocus. And so I'm thinking that what you're saying is a lot of it was employee related and
For sure.
driving related. And was it also just, your time and trying to, have a life and also have your offices? What else was a
For
factor?
sure. Another big factor that I know was my own issue was that I just didn't have systems in place that were substantial enough to scale.
Mm.
That because I had done things for so long and I was trying to train people to do things the way that I was doing them, I thought that was good enough, but it's a little bit like that game of telephone where like you teach one person and then they help to teach the next person. They just help to teach the next person. Like there's a lot that gets lost in that. And so
Yeah.
things that I thought were decent systems in place were not good enough. And so that was also creating some challenge and probably some of the ultimate just we weren't always chaotic, but there were just instances where, people
Yeah.
wanted more answers than we had concrete answers for. And there's a lot of gray in this too. Not everything with every patient is black and white. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
trying to create black and white procedures is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you
Yeah.
went from 7 to 4. How
Yeah.
did you choose which 3? I mean, was that really hard to let people go and say, we've made this decision, or did you find them jobs at the other locations? What did that look like?
Um, yeah, good question. I had to kind of just decide. I kind of decided I was coming into more of my legacy years instead of just my like super hard working do it myself years.
Mhm,
And then
mhm,
I started evaluating, what do I want to be known for? Do I want to be remembered as somebody who had a million locations? Like, is that what I want my legacy to be? And is that going to be memorable? And is anybody going to care about that?
mhm,
Or do I want to provide really, really good care to patients, but also to my staff? Like,
mhm,
Yeah.
and I kind of made the decision I wanted to pour into a smaller staff
mhm,
and potentially be a mentor that they would remember for the rest of their life that could pour into their future generations or
mhm,
teach them lessons that, would kind of collapse time for them.
mhm.
As much as I felt like I lacked mentors and people to help me know what to do and how to do it, I wanted to actually then decide to be a mentor for people coming behind me.
Love that.
So it,
Mhm,
it made it where like I'm not going to be able to do that and scale to this magnitude. So I took a principle from my hobby of gardening and decided to prune. And in gardening, you have the plant, and a lot of plants will send out these shoots.
mhm,
Like strawberries will do this, sweet potatoes will do this, where they send out these shoots and then the shoots dig into the dirt. But what happens is, and they're trying to grow and expand and take up more territory, more space. But what they do is they actually steal resources from the heart of the plant.
mhm,
And that is 100% how I felt. And so there were a few offices that took more of my energy and more of my attention and provided less fruit. And so
mhm, mhm,
I basically decided those were the ones that needed to be pruned off so
mhm,
that I could focus more of the energy back into the heart of the plant,
mhm,
back into the heart of the company. And
mhm,
that has been a great decision.
Yeah.
mhm.
I think
I feel like such a hard decision because I feel like as like private practice owners,
Oh my
we're
gosh.
taught, you read all the books about scaling and scale well and grow and expand and serve more. And I just love your like you can't be a great boss unless you're a little more present. And then you feel like the life's getting sucked out of you sometimes when you get too big. And it's like, yeah, you're giving such a good message here, I think.
Yes, I
So I
love
had
that.
some conditions when I sold, like, and they were actually kind of prayerful, but then I put them in the, negotiation stuff too, and just said, I want every employee that I have to get to just carry over.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
want anybody to actually lose their job, and I want the patients to be taken care of. So
Hmm.
those were kind of my two conditions, and we were
Hmm.
able to meet those, and so I felt like they were in good hands.
So you actually sold your offices, not closed them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That was a smart move too, because then you reap some reward from the selling of them and knowing that the patients were going to have a resource still to go to. And yeah, that was a really smart way to do that. I
Hmm.
know we all have this idea about what success looks like, and I know my idea of it is very different than a lot of people's. But when did you kind of have to let go of that success meant lots of offices?
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, it was that legacy thing. And what do I want to get to the end of my life and be able to say that was my greatest accomplishment? That we talk about that I was spread wide but shallow, or that I was narrow but deep. And I
Mhm. Mhm.
wanted the depth and I wanted those relationships. And really my goal though is to be as successful with 4 locations as we were with 7.
Mhm.
And I sold about a year and a half ago, and we should hit that this year. So
Mhm.
what I was able to do then is add some redundancy and almost overstaff my existing 4 or
Mhm.
remaining
Mhm.
4,
Mhm.
so that when something did shift and happen, then I wasn't the only one who was covering for, lost providers, and trying to build a little bit more redundancy into staff. And of course, everything is still a work in progress, but um,
Mhm.
yeah, but then we talk a lot about deep, not wide. And now I'm able to spend a lot more time pouring into the audiologists as a team and having team meetings and doing a lot more
Mhm.
collaboration. Because again, I was a lone shark for 8 years. I didn't
Mhm.
have many audiology friends. There was no, social media groups to be part of.
Yeah.
It was me. I don't think I talked to another audiologist for 5 years.
Wow.
Um, and
Uh-huh.
so one thing I wanted were colleagues. So as I
Yeah.
started hiring more people, I wanted to collaborate with those people. So we do that. And then also once a month, I do a one-on-one kind of hour-long personal business coaching strategy session with every employee or
Love
every
that.
provider. And we just talk about what they're successful at, where they need some help, how they're meeting their own personal goals and professional goals. And yeah, and it's been much more fulfilling for me too.
Mm. I love
Yeah,
that.
just being able to be a mentor to your staff is like
Mhm.
really something that you don't always see. So I love
Mhm.
that.
With
Like, so
your,
probably when you
oh,
meet
go ahead, Noel.
with them, it's probably more of a mentorship conversation than a boss to a employee. Yeah. So that's a whole different relationship, which is really nice. But I wonder if you ever have a hard time maintaining, yeah, but this is what I need you to do, even though you know, and how do
Mhm.
you guide them to something maybe that they're not doing as well at and still have that relationship is kind of what I'm
Mhm.
thinking.
One thing that I changed is as I hired people, um, and with pretty much this last round of kind of any audiology hiring I had to do, I flat out said, this is who I am going to be going forward. And if this doesn't feel like a good fit for you, then that's okay. But I plan to be really hands-on. I plan to be a mentor and a coach and help. And you have to give me permission to speak into your life and vice
Mhm.
versa. I will be open to say, things coming out of school now that I don't know because it didn't exist when I was in grad school many, many
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Um, but just starting with, I'm going to provide some mentoring for you, and you have to be humble enough to receive it, or we're just not going to be a good fit, and that's totally okay. But that's what I have to offer the universe right now.
Mhm.
Right.
And there are a lot of young audiologists who actually really do want that. And so
Yeah.
I've got
Oh,
a
yeah.
great team put together where that was just spoken before we even started.
Well, even I feel like coming out of grad school, a lot of young audiologists have never had business coaching. So they're probably like,
Yeah.
please teach me, tell me all the ways.
Yeah.
One thing I want to know is, so you have 4 locations. Do
Mhm.
you see patients? And if or if not, do you have like a office manager or a, what are the like hierarchy of roles that you have to keep everybody on track?
Yeah, great question. I finally was successful in giving up my patient schedule. Like I still really like that and I could do it a lot, but now finally I'm really enjoying this kind of mentoring piece. And so I
Mhm.
realized it's hard. It was hard to do both. So no, I do not have my own patient schedule anymore. I do have one day a month where I'll go in and kind of see patients with one of my audiologists just for myself, keep my own skills
Mhm.
up, stay in front of patients because I don't want to become either obsolete or just kind of out of date.
Yeah.
Which can
Which
happen
happens,
quickly in
which
this field,
happens.
right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Like you forget, what are the conversations being had behind that door? They
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to coach and share from a totally best case scenario standpoint. And we all know
Yeah.
that's rarely the exact conversation you're having with a
Mhm.
patient. So just having those real
Yeah.
conversations.
I love that.
is has been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Now for the last, almost 11 years, I have had a right hand who is amazing. In fact, she's come with me to certain conferences and different things. Some people know who she is. And um, she's really kind of the yin to my yang. Years ago, we heard a talk about from someone who wrote a book, and he was talking about you have to have an idea monkey and then you have to have an implementer.
Oh,
So I'm a
yeah.
bit of the idea monkey, and she's definitely the implementer. So we go together really well because I can get a little bit dreamy, and
Uh-huh.
she can help, keep my feet on
Do
the
it.
ground and make sure that the right things get implemented and the other things just kind of get set aside until
Is
the time.
she an audiologist or she is just the office manager type
Yeah, so
role?
she's director of operations.
Yeah.
So I consider myself really leadership over the providers.
Hmm.
And so that's the audiologists and our technicians. And then she is kind of the leader over the administrative staff, PCCs, any
Hmm.
billing, any back office admin people that we have. She
Great.
does.
Oh, I love that for you, Whitney.
Hmm.
Having somebody like, because I'm the idea monkey, and if I don't have somebody like reining me in, I'll get all crazy, you know. So,
Real in well.
yeah.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, so that's great that you found somebody like that early on that you can
Mhm.
balance things off.
And to keep her around,
Yeah,
longevity is hard. So obviously she values that role too, which is great.
yeah. Well, let's talk about how redefining your career and everything. Let's talk about how that's affected your life in general, your home life and your gardening life and
Mhm.
all of those things that you like to do.
I still put in just as many hours and potentially sometimes more than I did when I saw patients. But when my days were just so full of patients all day, every day, I just, honestly, I just felt like I was always disappointing people. Like
Mm,
I couldn't see all the patients and do all the admin and do all the
No.
HR and do all the stuff that everybody was pulling on me and doing all the marketing and do all the stuff without just disappointing everybody all the time. And I still, I don't know. I don't know if men would have the same conversation, or if it's maybe just a people pleasing nature in me. But
yeah.
that
Mhm.
that was hard. I struggled to feel like I was just disappointing people all the time.
Mhm.
Now I at least have more capacity to try to prioritize more of the stuff that needs to get done. And some of the things that I just absolutely were not even remotely on the that I would have had capacity to do before. Uh,
Mhm.
things like social media, things like going through the website more specifically, things like the coaching of the staff. I just couldn't do it. And in a
Right.
way, when I was seeing patients all myself, I was in competition with them.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
seeing, like they were
Yeah,
having to
very true. Yep.
for the time, and that didn't feel good. So this way they have their turf, and my turf is just to 100% support them to be the best providers that they can be. I kind of realized if I
That's
saw
awesome.
one day of patients, then I saw one day of patients and I helped that one day of patients. If
Mhm.
I am pouring into my six audiologists all day, every like as much as I can and helping them get better at what they're doing faster, then I get to see almost like 6 days of patients every single day.
Yeah.
I love that.
In terms of
Mhm.
impact. And so I
Mhm.
just like multiplied impact
Mhm.
and helping more people.
Do you feel like now at the end of your days, you have time to enjoy your husband and to enjoy gardening and you can leave work behind because you have kind of reallocated things? Has that changed with
For sure.
the downscaling?
Just, yeah, mental capacity, creativity,
Mhm.
lightheartedness, spontaneity. When I get stressed, I just get really narrow
Me
and
too.
like
Yeah.
too focused.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and so it's when I'm not feeling quite so crazy that I can be a little more spontaneous and fun and lighthearted and then potentially approachable too. So then it continues to be more conducive for people to come to me when they do have issues because I am just more approachable.
Yeah. Hmm. Um,
Yeah.
Tell us about your mission work. So we know Noelle's a big fan for mission work, which
Yeah.
I love too. I just haven't quite done it yet. Tell us about that and why that's important to you and what joy you found doing that.
I think the bleeding heart in me really just has the belief that everybody matters and
Yeah.
every life is worth something. And I've gotten to go specifically for hearing missions to Africa twice. Most cases of hearing loss there are meningitis or overdosed malaria medications,
Yeah.
and they just don't have resources. Like the poor mamas over there, if they have a child who is too hearing impaired to be put in school, then they're kind of saddled with that child all day, every day.
Mm.
And so getting to put hearing aids on those kids just showed value to the kids,
Mhm.
but also reminded the moms that those kids were valuable and not broken.
Yeah. Mm.
And getting to like that life is just as important as there are other kids who didn't have disabilities, even when they can't always see that. So, yeah, so there was it's super heartwarming. You think that you are pouring in and making their life so much better, but really always you're the one who comes home
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I found too. It's like
Mhm.
people say, "Oh, it's so wonderful that you do that." I go, "It's wonderful that I get to do that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I get just as much out of it as the person.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
really
So,
opens your eyes to, yeah, the world and how different and we think our hardship seems so small sometimes when you go somewhere like that. So I
yes,
love
yes.
that. You ready to
Well, let's see.
shift to rapid
Yeah.
fire?
Chip,
Yeah.
do you have anything else you want to add about anything we talked about today?
Um, we kind of talked about gardening, and there's so many analogies about gardening that I
I
just
love the
love,
gardening
and
analogy.
getting to spend time outside and be creative. And, there's so many analogies about weeding. And I'll
Mm.
share this one thing I think is important. You just go through times that are super hard, and you can feel like you're just pouring so much effort in and not getting anything out, and nothing is really working. But what I love about gardening is if you put the right effort into the right soil at the right time, you will get a harvest. Like you will. It's a principle of you reap what you sow. If you put that time and energy and effort into the right soil, you will get a return. And there have been times in the business that I've had to just remind myself of that. Like, I am making the right investments in people, and I am doing the right thing in the right ways, in the right timing. Like, things will come together, and it will work out. And it has like been a life lesson that I've had to remind myself of many times, because being a business owner is hard. And there are very few people encouraging you in it. And sometimes you just have to bring your own encouragement.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Such
love
great
that one.
analogies. I
Yeah,
love it, the
yeah.
gardening.
Like you should just write a book on that
Yeah,
analogy
exactly.
because it's so true. I feel like sometimes practice owners, you feel like you're doing all the things and you're shooting in the dark and like how do I make more money? How do I be a better boss? And it's like sometimes you just need to like weed the garden and do a
Yeah,
focused effort on something that you know will work, but don't give it up because you're on the right track and then you'll reap what you sow. I love that.
yeah.
That's so good, Whitney. Be a
So
motivational
good.
speaker. It's in
Yeah.
it's on the track record. Okay, rapid fire. Are we
Good
ready?
fire. Yep.
Okay, what's one word that describes you and why?
Oh, after these last few years, I would say tenacity.
There you go. That's a good one. I love that
Yep.
one.
Yeah, just having to, sometimes feel like you're kicking and clawing. But I do think that lesson led to the tenacity of like, I knew that it would come about if I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a great word for you. What is one skill that you'd like to master overnight or just
Something
anytime?
related to music, maybe playing an
Mm,
instrument, playing
me too.
piano.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I
It'd be
always say I would
lovely.
love to sing, and I always say something happens very because I could not sing it all.
Me either. Me either. But how relaxing. Just go home and like play a guitar on the
Yeah.
porch or play the piano. I know. It's like I got nothing. What would you
So
tell your
good.
younger self, Whitney?
Nobody is being as hard on you as you are,
Mm,
and you are doing it better than you think.
Yeah.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
So
And what
good.
do you think caring healthcare is going to look like in 10 years?
I really see a split model. I see the two tiers building, the concierge,
Mm,
higher level, super care focused, having to avoid a lot of insurances and third parties and things
mhm, mhm.
versus the ones who play the game and play the game as like almost like the speed game. You have to
Yeah,
see
the
maybe
machine kind
quicker
of.
and
Mhm,
Yeah.
and
mhm,
I think both models can succeed. So it's a matter of which identity do you want.
Yep.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
don't think you can try to be both.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because the Sam's Clubs and the Costco's seemingly are going managed care route. It kind of looks like that writing on the wall.
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
you say is your coffee order? Or
Ooh.
tea or Diet Coke, whatever.
Yeah. Uh, caramel macchiato, almond milk, half sugar.
Oh, there you go. Are you a Starbucks girl or like local coffee
Uh,
shop
that's
girl?
a Starbucks order, but I may make your own coffee at home, gal.
That's the
Mm.
way. I'm a black
In
coffee
that
girl
in
most of
that
the
great
time.
cup that you're drinking from.
I know, look at that thing. Serious.
What is the sound that makes you happy?
When we have a timeshare that will take us to the Bahamas, take us to Atlantis, and one time I just like sat there and recorded the waves hitting the ocean or the ocean waves
Oh,
hitting the beach
yes.
and recorded it and posted it on Facebook. And then I came across that memory and I was like,
Mm.
yes. And I started listening to that all the time. I was like, this is like so relaxing. Yes.
Can I just pipe that through the work speakers? Just sit here and hear
Yeah.
that sound. What is
Mhm.
one thing our profession could do better?
Whew.
There's a lot of things, but what's
Support
one
each
thing?
other and judge people less. You
Mm.
just don't know why they
Yeah.
made the decisions that they made and how they came to that decisions and what all of the factors are that made them make those decisions. And just um, we expect people to give us the benefit of the doubt, but we don't do the same for others. And
Mm.
so
Mhm.
Yeah. That's my saying,
Yeah,
be
that's well saying.
curious, not judgmental.
there
Yeah.
you go.
And I've been using that a lot. It's so true. But
Hmm.
so on that note, what kind of bee would you be? Kind, curious, bold, brave, or happy?
I have gone through seasons where I want to have tried all of those, and I actually do try to make all of those somewhat traits of mine. In this season, um, boldness,
Mm.
aka kind of assertiveness, just getting to a stage of like not being afraid to assert what I need instead of just serving constantly. And I do consider myself a servant leader, so I really do try to meet other people's needs as well. But um, just not being afraid to say, actually, in this spot, this is what I need right now. And whether it's something really small or whether it's saying like, you know what, I just turned 50 years old. If I want a little bit more time on my hands, then so be it.
I
Yeah.
deserve
I
it.
have given a lot to my business,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
audiology, and
Be bold. I love
I
it.
can be
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. And you deserve it. I mean, I feel, and
Yeah.
like you said, it's just interesting. You said you've kind of gone through all of those in your
Yes, I
life.
love
And
the
at this
season.
point, yeah, at this season, you're bold. Well, let's do our Be Curious segment. So, our Be Curious segment is to join your state organization. So, I am coming up on our June 4th and 5th Indiana conference that our board has been planning for a year now. Almost 11 months we've been planning this next one.
Just a
The
second year
second year
organization that you're,
organization. I think we have, I think we'll end up with around 60 to 65 attendees. We have 20 vendors. We've had great
wow.
manufacturer support. So it'll be
You
a
have like
really
a
fun conference.
full-fledged conference in Florida. We probably worked well, it's going to be 29 years, and you're already doing it. That's awesome.
We have really great speakers who are so gracious to
I
come,
saw
and
that.
many of them are donating their time and travel. And so you can't thank people enough for doing stuff like that. So please join your state organizations. That's how we can afford lobbyists. That's how we can move the profession forward, is really at the state level.
Yes.
So that's our Be Curious. So in closing, Whitney, thank you so much for just sharing. You're a breath of fresh air. You have grown so much and scaled back and learned lessons along the way. And so thank you so much for sharing with everybody. I'm sure Whitney would be willing to answer your questions if you guys have questions. Yeah, I think, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
thank
for
you so
sharing. And
much.
you're such a good role model for me as a young provider to look up to you. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
so everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Sound Sisters. Thanks, Whitney.